All right, Coach Lee here, bringing you a ride report straight from the front lines. We had a great epic ride here in Virginia called the Pantani Ride. It celebrates the day of his death, February 14th. It's held every February for many, many years. It starts in this great farm. That's where we park, and it goes through some epic gravel climbs in the Blue Ridge Mountains, gravel climbs, and it is just an amazing ride. And so, really wanted to break down my ride, look at some analytics, kind of how I approach the ride, and yeah, let's just jump in and let's look at the data. This is a quick video. It's probably going to be pretty nerdy, so if you're not interested in watts, if you're not interested in cardiac drift, if you're not interested in RPMs, things like that, then just blow this video by. But let's kind of do a deep dive on this data for the ride. So it's 47.74 miles. It took me 3 hours, 31 minutes. I don't think I might have stopped to take a picture or two. It's about 6,000 feet of climbing. I burned 2,400 kilojoules. I was really hoping to get over a 2,500 kilojoule workout for this, so I was just under. And I burned 189 TSS, which is not a lot considering the epic nature of this ride. And it's I did my average watts were 195 with an MP of 227. But so this is the course, this is the map, and this is the course. We basically have three climbs. We have this nice warm-up climb, Fox Mountain, then we jump into Simmons Gap, and these are all gravel climbs here. And then Broken Back Mountain, which is also all gravel climbs as well. The epic aspect of this is that there, especially on Broken Back Mountain, there's a lot of 20% plus grades, and it just pounds you over and over and over again. Luckily, the roads were fantastic. All the gravel was pushed to the side, and basically you just had this beautiful, smooth dirt road that was just absolutely perfect. I was able to do the climbs. I didn't have to get off or anything like that. Now, if it was loose gravel, I would have had problems. I would have spun out because you're just too steep. But because the gravel was pushed aside, dirt roads, I was able to get out of the saddle and do tons of just comfortable out of the saddle work and just relax. The ride itself has beautiful views. It's just an epic part of Virginia that everybody should ride. You should piece this together. It's, only 47 miles, the actual Pantani Ride course, but then a lot of other people who have done this ride in the past, they added more. They made it 60 miles. They made it 70 miles. I saw several centuries where they did this route, after doing 60 miles or so, 50 miles or so. So it's an epic day, and let's jump into some data and see what we got. So here's my power. Basically, I just tried to hold it completely below threshold. So that was my idea. This was the last ride that I did. I had planned. I had a brutal 3-week training block. This was just supposed to be a 3.5 hour endurance ride. I tested the day before, so this was on a Saturday. I did an FTP test on Friday. I did an extended WKO5 25-minute test. So I was my legs by the time I got to the Pantani ride were quite toasty. So the whole goal was just to try to keep it tempo zone 2 endurance as much as possible. And as you can see from the general line list, here's my power. That's my FTP threshold. I did a great job considering the epic nature of these climbs to keep everything below threshold. This is one of my, I always look at this chart, especially on a ride like this. This is the DFRC chart in WKO5. This is called your dynamic functional reserve. So basically, when you're out there and you're training with power, you have so much that you can do below your threshold, you have so much that you can do above your threshold. The blue line marks what I can do above my threshold. So once you start going above your threshold, you tap into your anaerobic battery. Your anaerobic battery, which you can train to make bigger, taller, whatever you want to do, you can train that battery. And so basically what WKO5 does is it models that battery. The dynamic functional reserve capacity is also called W prime, for those of you who are familiar with that term. And so basically when you go above threshold, that for a certain amount of time and burn a certain amount of kilojoules, that line starts to tick down. Okay. So if you're in a crit race, that line is always going down. It's going down. It's going down. It's going down. It's going down. If you're in a cyclocross race, that line will just go down, will go down, will down. You're always attacking that line. And so I was really interested in this. And so, we started off just really easy. And then I'm not even sure why I dug deep there. We were probably just blowing off some steam. Having some fun on a brief roller. Again, not really sure why I dug deep there, but probably just on a roller. But, once we got up to these big, steep pitches on Simmon Gaps and Broken Gap Mountain, I was able to really keep this under control. Now, remember, right, I'm just out there. I'm not trying to crush these climbs. This is my first time doing these climbs. I'm just trying to go out and have fun and do an easy ride. And so I was trying to spare everything that I could, go easy, not fall over, not walk my bike, but just not attack those climbs like a lot of people were attacking those climbs. And so I really never had to dig deep. Right here at the bottom of Broken Back Mountain, you can see that was my biggest dig of the day. But again, if I was doing a cyclocross race or especially a crit, you would just see these lines. They would go all the way down here and disappear. They would go down. So I never really had to, attack my anaerobic battery for any significant amount of time, which was good. It was just what I wanted, right? I just wanted a great paced, steady ride, and I was able to nail that no problem. Here's my time and zones. Obviously I'm disappointed in this, but there were a lot of downhills. And if you were one of the 1,500 people who passed me on this day on the downhills, I ride my downhills. I even have 42s on my front and back, and I'm still like grandma out there on those downhills. And some of those downhills, they were straight down. It was pretty comical. But so I had too much time in zone one. I would love to have moved, 20 minutes over that, 20 minutes of this over to here. But I was riding with people as well. Now, for my anaerobic capacity in VO2 max, that was another thing that I was very interested in. And I really only for this day had about 3 minutes at anaerobic capacity and only about 8 minutes at VO2 max. So, you can do this ride. I mean, it's epic in nature, and you really have to be able to just slowly grind. You have to be, comfortable with my gearing. I really had to be comfortable and ready for doing, extended periods of work at like a cadence of 50. I even saw like I was down 47, 46, 45 for brief bits of time. But, you can see I did not spend as much time as I thought here or even here. But again, the whole goal for me was to pace this thing and to make it as easy as possible on myself. It was the end of a pretty brutal 3-week block. So that's that. This was great. This was my power through the whole thing. This was my interval trend line. And so how I train and this was very much a training ride for me. So what I wanted to do was to basically go out slow and end strong. And so I wanted to go out easier, slower, and end stronger and faster. But that's how I train. That's, how I race. And so how I train, I do workouts like this that are, this is a 3.5 hour, endurance zone 2, but even in zone 2, when I go out there, I'll do laps. I'll do this in 3 laps. I'll do this lap, at 55% of my FTP, and then right here, 60% of my FTP, and then this one, like 70% of my FTP for a 3.5 hour ride. And then I do tons of stuff like this as well, where I'll do, this is a great endurance ride with some tempo work at the front, work it all out, and then end with some tempo work it well. And so that's what I did here. So I cruised up, and then there's this last 20 minutes, you get done with your descents, and then you have about 20 minutes to get back to the parking lot. And then I knew that, and so I just rocked it out. I mean, it was a great time. It's called the Pantani Sprint, and it is fun. And I was rocking it out, man. Like my legs, big ring tempo after all that work I just did. I felt great and nailed it. And there's actually a Strava segment for the Pantani Sprint. And I didn't, so I was cruising it, and I got fourth on that Strava segment. I just nailed it. Feeling good, looking better, rocking that thing out. And so that's basically what I wanted to do, start in endurance, end in tempo. And so that was a great day of work for myself. Another thing that I look at is heart rate. And so I'm really, I really pay attention to heart rate with myself and with my clients. And let me tell you a quick story. I had a client, tragically, her heart rate was off a little bit. And we were going through all the reasons. Why is your heart rate off here? Why is your heart rate off here? And they finally took her to the doctor, and she had leukemia. And so this was just recently. And so it was absolutely heartbreaking for me. But, I always look at heart rate. I look at my heart rate. I look at my athlete's heart rate, and I always study it in relationship to the work that they're doing, to their kilojoules and to their watts. And so I was looking at this, and so here's my cardiac drift. This is pretty hard. You can't really judge this type of ride. It's hard to do, but what I did to understand decoupling or cardiac drift, but what I did was I looked at this last 20-minute thing. These were my tempo watts. So in this last 20 minutes, I was tempo watts. I looked at my heart rate, and it was tempo heart rate. So there was no decoupling. So say if I was riding tempo watts and then my heart rate was just through the roof, like through threshold or something like that, then I definitely decoupled. So what it told me was that, after a very vigorous 3.5 or 3 week training block, to have that at the end of that very vigorous 3 week training block, it was good. I'm super fatigue resistant is one word that they call it. Durable is another word that they call it. But yeah, so I was great. I had no problems. And so I felt really good after finishing that ride. Hey, so that's basically it. Contact me, Lee at pro13.com. I'm a coach. If you want to talk about your Pantani ride, if you want to talk about other metrics or other events, if you want help planning, reach out to me, Lee at pro13.com, Lee at pro13.com.